Why does global cooperation matter? As the UN turns 75, global cooperation matters more than ever before. No country can tackle the world's problems alone. We need to work together to end the conflicts that divide country against country and endanger children. We need to act as a global community against climate change. We need to bring governments and businesses together in new ways to solve health, education, water and sanitation challenges. We need innovators, and we need scientists to develop new medicines, new modes of transport, and new ways to communicate. And we need to listen to one another, understand one another, and act as one to protect and prepare the next generation to inherit our world. As the UN turns 75, let's shape a better, fairer, more peaceful and sustainable future. And let's do it together.
Hello, welcome everyone. It's gonna 1 minute. Okay. Well, all right. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Youth Future Global Dialogue. It's organized by the New York Sdg chapter. Buddha Sdg Foundation is an international humanitarian organization whose mission is to relieve the suffering of those in need while creating a better world for all through compassion, love, and hope. This event is actually organized by youth. We hope we can make greater connections with youth from different parts of the world to inspire each other, to share your thought with each other, and to envision and create a better future for your generation. Hi, my name is Roger. I'm an alumnus from University of California, San Diego, also an active Sdg volunteer. And it's truly an honor and pleasure for me to be your moderator for today.
Hi everyone, my name is Elaine and I also graduated from UC San Diego and I'm currently in San Francisco, California, and I'm happy to be here as Roger's fellow moderator. So before we begin the panel, we have some friendly reminders. First, during the panel discussion, please keep your camera off and your microphone muted. But during the small group discussions, you can turn on your camera and microphone to share your thoughts. And also, please be respectful of the panelists and everyone else. So while people are speaking, please avoid typing in the chat. You can save your thoughts for the small group discussions.
Okay, so I think a lot of you guys is joining right now. So if you haven't renamed yourself, here's how you're gonna rename it. So if you're attending from the United States, please put your state acronym inside the bracket in front of your name. And if you're attending from the rest of the world, please put your full country name inside the bracket in front of your name. And if you see any athlete, that means they're facilitators for the later part of small group discussion. And you'll see a bracket with panelists, and me and Elaine with the bracket MOD with moderator. And let's see. Okay, and also when you RSVP for the dialogue, you should all have received 2 forms to sign. If you're a minor, so if you're 18 or younger, you'll have to sign both media consent form, media relay consent form, and parental permission form. Sign them and return by email. And if you're adult over 18, you only have to sign media release form. And if you have attended the dialogue that we have back in October and November, and you are able to fill out this form, you don't have to do that again. You only have to do it once. Okay.
All right, so this is our agenda for today. We have our opening right now, and then we'll hear from our panelists. Then we'll go into a small group discussion in breakout rooms, and you'll all come back to do a large group sharing here in this main session so that you can talk about what you discussed in your small groups. And then we'll do a final Q&A with our panelists, and we'll close out our event. So Roger, do you remember what we talked about at the last dialogue?
Yeah, I remember we talked about the awareness of accessibility and how can we improve the education system. I remember that one of the key points is that we need to take small action so we can contribute to a better future. I remember panelist Helen, she shows various homemade inventions that she created by herself. And the initial thought that she created these inventions because she wants to be more sustainable to protect the environment. That's it. Simple thought, but she made a lot of invention, a lot of impact. And from Darcy, from the teaspoon of change, he emphasized that the small action accumulate together can be a big impact. And also Dr. Huang from Sdg USA, he shared that like care and love is important, and we must kind of like withhold that and then share with everyone. And also we discussed SDGs, which stand for Sustainable Development Goals. And there are 17 goals determined by the United Nations that we must achieve before 2030 to create a better world.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned SDGs. Which ones is your favorite?
I really like SDG goal 14, which is the blue one with the fish icon. The meaning is to the goal is to protect ocean. And I really like it is because I actually took a class of a coral reef back in back college, and I deeply understood how important it is to end the ocean pollution and restore our coral reef. What about you, Elaine?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think protecting our oceans is definitely very important. For me, I'm really passionate about education. So SDG number 4 really speaks to me. I feel that without quality education for everyone, we wouldn't be able to innovate for a better future. So why don't we ask everyone else here today which SDGs are their favorite? So please let us know by annotating on the screen with the heart or a star icon. And to do that, you can go to the green bar at the top of your screen, and you can click View option and choose Annotate. And you should see a toolbar with all the options for annotating. And you can click the check mark icon, and you should be able to click the heart or the star icon and stamp it on the screen. So I already see people stamping.
Yeah, while you guys are doing that, I just want to kind of mention that I remember from the last dialogue, Dr. Huang also mentioned about how the US Sdg Foundation is currently working on helping underprivileged children have less financial ability, to support them to continue receive a good quality education. And actually that's related to like no poverty and also kind of relate to education as well. So yeah. Well, I think I see a lot of heart. Thank you. And yeah, good. Glad that you all know how to work. So let's give it a few more seconds. Actually, cool.
This is very awesome.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you. I think I see a lot of hearts on. Which one do you think has the most heart, Elaine? It's kind of hard to see for one. 1 and 5 is kind of hard to see. There's some overlap.
There's a lot of 13. I think climate change is a big topic right now.
15 as well. 16 felt like there's peace, justice. Cool, thank you. I'm actually gonna take a screenshot just to memorize this. Yeah. See. Yeah, okay. Thank you everyone. Thank you for your participation. That's great. Let's see. Okay, so now we can let's clear the screen for these clear these annotation and see. Okay, yeah, back to Reland.
All right. So now I'm really honored to introduce our amazing panelists. So first up, we have Jess. She is a class of 2020 graduate from Minerva schools at KGI. Though she is originally from South Africa, Jess has lived in 8 countries across 5 continents, where she explored the use of digital technology in innovative education. From researching accessible education in Kenya to policy consulting at the Argentine Ministry of Education, Jess is continuously learning about different education systems and reforms from around the globe. She's currently working on the launch team of Minerva's innovative new high school program called the Minerva Baccalaureate, where she begins her career in EdTech. Hi, Jess. Where are you joining us from?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I recently moved to Portland, Oregon, so that's where I'm calling in from. It's pouring rain outside, so apologies if you hear the noise, but the air feels so crisp and fresh. So very excited to be calling in today.
Thank you, Jess. Great to have you here. Thank you. And I would like to next introduce Kevin. Kevin currently serves as the program director for Lehigh University's one-year MBA program, a globally ranked one-year MBA program that works with diverse student population from around the world. Kevin has spent the last 15 years working in higher education for various college and university in the United States, with a focus on innovation, curriculum development, increasing access to education for first-generation college students. How are you doing, Kevin? Where are you connecting from?
Hi, Roger and Elaine. Thanks for having me tonight. I'm here on the East Coast of the United States in the Christmas city, which is Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So we have about a little bit of snow outside, so getting ready for the Christmas holidays here. But thank you again for having me today.
Thanks, Kevin. I would love to see some snow, but thanks for being here. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Joe. He is currently the Senior Representative of the Religious Affairs Department for the Buddhist Sdg Foundation. He has been an active Sdg volunteer since the year 2000, where he participated in disaster relief in both the US and Central America. In 2010, Joe returned to the Sdg Global Headquarters in Taiwan as a full-time employee. There, he continued to engage in disaster relief efforts and participated in various UN focus groups, such as UNDPI and UNFCCC. There, he leveraged his on-the-field experience for the promotion of sustainable development. Hi, Joe. Where are you connecting from?
Hi, everybody. Good to have this opportunity to be online with everybody. You can see outside right now behind me, the window, we're actually here 9 a.m. here in Taiwan. Even though we're sort of half the world away, but my heart's still in the US. I lived in the US for 20 years. I consider myself as a citizen of the United States of America, and I'm glad to be able to participate in this dialogue, to be able to talk about and to learn about what everybody has been doing about this sustainability in the digital innovation age. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. All right. So now everyone, you know who the panelists are, so you can prepare some questions for them on Slido. And you can join by going to slido.com and enter the code 60891, or you can scan the QR code on the screen to get access. And when you type your question, please indicate which panelist you would like to hear from. And later, we'll try to have our panelists answer as many questions as possible during our Q&A session.
Yeah, just want to add that to part, the Slido had a feature where you can like the question if you felt that question is very meaningful. And so feel free to do that. And that's kind of like the order we'll be answering with the most like. And so, yeah. So feel free to ask as many questions as you like, and then like the other question if you find that interesting. And without much further ado, I'm going to our first question. So first question is for all panelists, like from your perspective, what does global cooperation look like, and how does it relate to sustainable development? If we can start with Jess.
Yes. So perhaps we should start with a working definition of sustainable development, and maybe the other panelists will have different attributes of it to add. But sustainable development in its essence is economic development that is conducted without the depletion of natural resources. And the concept originated at, or kind of came into fruition at the 1992 UN Conference of Environment and Development, where it was found and really agreed upon that the protection of the environment and economic growth are very tightly linked. And this becomes a global issue because we know with climate change, there will be mass migration and further refugee crises. People will lose their homes, their lives. There's going to be a huge impact on the way that people live and also the places that people live. And then this then becomes an economic issue. And so you can see all these issues are so tightly linked, and it's not just specific to one place, because decisions that take place in one physical location can have impacts and domino effects all across the world. This also comes into play when you're thinking about trade and dependence on other nations for different resources. And so cooperation is definitely needed. Earlier, we looked at the chart of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and number 17 is actually a call for countries to align their policies. It's a vision for improved and equitable trade, where different nations and countries can coordinate their investment initiatives so that we can promote sustainable development across different borders. And so there's a lot of emphasis on how different countries can work together to create sustainability in the development that they're creating for the betterment and improvement of people's lives and health and safety. I think on another level, for all of you here today, you all play a role as well, because right now you might not be one of those global decision makers, but maybe one day you will be. And in the meantime, there are so many different things that you can do to bring your background and your perspective into the conversations, both here today and going forward. So as you're listening to the different panelists, and especially when you go into the small groups, keep that in mind, and really just keep in mind how important your perspective is. We have people from so many different places around the world here today. You can see everyone's renamed their names in the chats, and even just the introduction of the panelists. Everyone has so many different perspectives. Let's start thinking about how we can work together to create something from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate the definition and how the reminder that everything in the world is connected through domino effects and linked, and that's what makes global cooperation so important. So now let's hear from Kevin. What does global cooperation look like, maybe in your MBA program specifically, and how does it relate to sustainable development?
Thanks, Elaine. And Jess, you did a great job kind of leading into my response here. So again, thanks everybody for attending. It's really whether it's your first step in learning more about this, or if you've been involved. If you look at this list here, I mean, this is a lot of these things are things that your generation is really going to have to work hard on figuring out. Just take a second and look at this. Things like aging, AIDS, atomic energy, climate change, democracy, gender equity, human rights, health and migration. I mean, the list really continues to go on. So today is progress. Today is learning, and I like that a lot of you kind of put the hearts on education as your SDG, because that really is a key to moving forward with a lot of this. One thing I wanted to show you, and Jess actually had talked about it. Let me apologize. Get back here. So I'm going to show you a video here if I can get my mouse to the right point. You know what? I'm not going to be able to do it. Let me just show you this from this perspective. There's a really good video out there, and I can put it in the chat for everybody to watch. This will give you an idea. It's about a 30-second video you can find on the internet. And what it does is it's a spinning globe, and it looks at global trade across the country. And when I was preparing for across the world, when I was preparing for this, The first time I looked at it, it's really interesting because you see kind of areas like the United States and China and Europe, where you're seeing a lot of trade going in and out of these particular areas. And obviously, for a lot of reasons, that's very important. The second time I watched it was even more interesting because you saw the areas where there's no trade. You saw countries that really aren't involved in this level of commerce. And I think that's important to talk about of who's being left out of kind of that overall trade conversation and overall global cooperation. I'll make sure I get you guys the link before you have it tonight because it's a really, really interesting visual. So I think why a lot of us are connected, again, there's a lot of countries that aren't connected. The one thing I want to show you here is while we all have to work together from a country perspective, you're going to see here that there's so many different countries with so many different priorities. This is a Pew research from 2020 that looked at the percentages of countries who say blank is a major threat to their country. So you can see there is some consensus around things like climate change, but there's also not full agreement. So I think a lot of it is trying to figure out how obviously countries can work together, but also focus on their own particular interests as well too. I know my time is a little bit short here. So I do want to also show you one other thing that I think is really, really positive. So in that same Pew research, the question was asked about willingness to cooperate with other countries. And if you look in that green section here, you can see that the majority of countries will take into account other countries' interests, even if it means making compromises on their own. So with all the bluster that you hear sometimes from certain countries, at the end of the day, the majority of us are all going to be willing to work together. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's an important part that you mentioned because I watched the video as you shared with us earlier. Yeah, I think it's important that maybe we had to think how should we make that kind of connection to those areas with less cooperation, the global cooperation. So it's something we probably need to think about. Thank you, Kevin. Joe, what does global cooperation look like to you from an NGO background?
Yeah, thank you. I think both Jess and also Kevin mentioned it, so I'll just continue on. I think the problems that we're facing now is, as Kevin had that whole list and it goes on, the problems are now much bigger and they're now much more prevalent. The problems and challenges faced by the next generation, including all of you, all of us, and our next generations are going to be a lot more difficult to solve. So at times, and most of the time, we do feel powerless. We do feel helpless, but that doesn't have to be the case. And I would like to use this example of what we have done here at Sdg Foundation in the year 2020 in terms of the pandemic to share with you what can be done. So this is what we have done in this year. And obviously the biggest part starting 2020 in February was that we have provided throughout the world the PPEs. And understand that there are a huge need for PPEs when we first encountered this problem. What we have done is what we try to do is to cooperate, provide this cooperation by fostering this connectivity, by linking the people that have the PPEs to the people that need the PPEs. And therefore, what ended up happening was was able to provide these protective equipments, not only the masks, but also the N95s and also the protective gowns, the masks, and also the ventilators, as well as the livelihood assistance to the people that were in need. And not only that, we were able to provide this to more than 86 countries and regions in the world. And that includes all the continents, all these places, all these countries that we have done, more than 85, 86 of them. And I think all this were possible and achievable because of global cooperation. We couldn't do this on our own. Even if we have all the people and all the boots on the ground, we actually work with all these NGOs across the world to do this very same goal. We match up the people that have the PPEs, but they have no means of sending to the people that need them. And also matching up all the people and the needs. Obviously, there's a huge deficit. We don't have enough PPEs, and therefore it allows us to now plan for the future. Now we're providing and preparing for the global stockpile so that we have this emergency stockpile when the third and the fourth and the fifth and the future waves of this pandemic continue to grow. Now, how does this relate to sustainability? I don't think this is enough. I don't believe that this global cooperation that we have right now is sustainable. And from Jess's definition of what sustainable means, I wanted to go further. I think this is not sustainable because we always do things when it's already or nearly too late. In order to be sustainable, I believe we need to know and we need to be reminded and we need to be constantly connected to what is happening right now. Otherwise, we could have the resources or we could have the help, but we're not connected and we don't know, and that's not going to be enough to be sustainable. So I think today for me, the focus is going to be how do we be linked together? How do we be connected? How do we be spiritually connected together to be able to achieve this true global cooperation? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate that example. I think, like the PPEs, like global cooperation doesn't stop there, especially with the vaccine coming out and who knows when this pandemic will end. So it's very, very important. All right, we're going to reshare slides and let's continue to our next question. So we're going to talk about digital innovation as an enabler for global cooperation and sustainable development. So we have individual questions. So for Jess, how does Minerva Schools promote global cooperation and utilize digital innovations in the building of a sustainable future? And do you think there are aspects of Minerva Schools that could be implemented in the traditional education system?
Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you for mentioning everything you did. I think that global cooperation of being connected is so important, and this is something that Minerva certainly does. If whoever's sharing the screen, if you could go to the slide, thank you. So for those of you who don't know Minerva, it's a 4-year undergraduate program based in San Francisco with a focus on rebuilding higher education with a very global mindset. So this is done in a few different ways, and I've chosen to highlight them here. The first portion is Global Immersion, where it's a 4-year degree based in 7 different countries around the world. So there's 150-ish students per cohort, and the students come from so many different countries around the world. It's about 80% international students in the student population, and they go to a different city each semester. And the reason that they do this is because there is project-based learning in the classroom that is then implemented in real-world situations. So you might be learning about a certain topic in the classroom, and then you have the chance to understand what that means in the real world while you're in class with people with so many backgrounds and perspectives, and you're moving around the world in order to understand what those different things look like and mean to different communities around the globe. A part of it that I think is particularly sustainable is the city as a campus model. So instead of having one large campus that has to be maintained and you have to think about water resources for keeping the grass green and all these different things, Minerva uses the city as a campus. So if you're doing your semester in London and you need to use a library, you go to the British Library, which is free and open to the public. It has some of the rarest and oldest books in the world. It has resources that you need. Those resources already exist. So thinking about sharing resources, tapping into them, and knowledge sharing in that same regard. And then the second part, which is very innovative and certainly true for everything that's going on in the world right now, is utilizing technology for the classroom. So the Minerva classroom experience is facilitated through technology, where there's a residential component where the students live together, but the digital classroom is very effective for how the brain actually learns and also for facilitating very interactive, active classes. So there are no lectures, everything is discussion-based. And this allows students to go to class and perhaps they're in Berlin and they're learning about data science. And then they move to Hyderabad in India and they're still using concepts from their data science classes, but applying them to a history class in Hyderabad. And so the interdisciplinary nature of really understanding different topics and different things outside of your major is so important for cooperation. Because if you're in policy and you're creating laws, you have to understand what's going on in the environment, or you have to understand, if you're a data scientist and you're creating an app, you have to understand the users and how that's going to be implemented in different places around the world. So everyone has a different role to play. And the interdisciplinary nature of having exposure to different majors, different fields, different academic content, and then applying those to different countries around the world is really important for that global cooperation. And then another part of how the Minerva classroom works is that the professors are not bound by geography. So like the example I gave before, you could be on a semester in Berlin, in Germany, and you could have a professor who's in Thailand or a professor in the US, in California. And this allows for really rich interdisciplinary discussions, global knowledge sharing, where professors are working on all different incredible fields around the world and bringing that to the classroom experience. So I know that the Minerva experience, the Minerva model, is very different from the traditional model of higher education, but I still think that the interdisciplinary nature of these programs and the way we think about academics can definitely be implemented in a traditional setting too. And the way that we can use digital tools for global input can also be applied in different programs around the world, because global exposure, like understanding what is happening in another place around the world, understanding what that looks like, is so important. So a small example of how that could work is something like this, a forum where we have students in the US, we have students in Taiwan, bringing them together to meet up digitally. They haven't met each other, they have different backgrounds, but they can still discuss these very important topics together, and digital tools enable that. So even though other institutions have a different model, even the traditional model can allow for digital technology to bring students together across geographies. My time is almost up, so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really like how the Minerva school system is so unique that like every semester you just switch a different city. I think that's a great way to really immerse the city and then learn about the local and then connect to the local, the culture, things, people, industry. Yeah, I really like that. Very interested. Thank you. Next to Kevin. How does traditional higher education adapt to and leverage digital innovation in promoting global cooperation and building a sustainable future?
Thanks, Roger. Perfect. Yeah, thanks. And Jess, again, great answer. I'm a product of a liberal arts education that believed in an interdisciplinary approach to my bachelor's degree. So I'm really interesting to hear kind of that model. Before I start, I'll mention I oversee Lehigh University's one-year full-time MBA program. One of the things that drew me to Lehigh for the MBA program was kind of its integrated curriculum that actually integrates the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations into its MBA curriculum. A lot of times you may think of an MBA as kind of, your economics, your accounting, your finance, your strategy classes, which we obviously have all of those. But the students actually take two courses that we call Societal Shifts 1 and Societal Shifts 2 that really look at these sustainable development goals. And the reason for it is, number one, Lehigh is, we have an NGO relationship with the United Nations. We're the sixth university in the world to have that relationship. But we also realize, as I think Joe had said, from a cooperation level, we know that business is going to have to play such an active role in making a lot of these changes and seeing the SDGs actually happen. So just on a personal note, that's one of the things that attracted me to my current job, was that connection to the United Nations. What I want to talk about in this question is, I'll throw a few statistics at you, and then I'm going to give you one example of how I think higher education can play a role in this. So couple numbers here. So in 2010, Harvard University and Asian Development Bank showed us that only 6.7% of the world's population have a bachelor's degree. Another statistic, and I'll show you how this is all going to connect in a minute. 59% of the world's population are active internet users. So 6 out of 10 people are active internet users. 91% of internet usage is mobile on your phone. From a cost standpoint, here in the United States, a cost of a bachelor's degree can range anywhere from $20,000 US up to $50,000 US or more per year times 4 years. And the final thing I'm going to mention is that the global poverty rate in 2017 was the data point that I had, was about 9.2%, or about close to 700 million people that lived on very little amount of money per day. So when Roger had asked at the beginning of this where to put your heart next to the SDG that made the most sense, mine went to poverty. It was the reason I picked poverty was because I think without solving poverty, you're not going to be able to get to a lot of those issues, and one of them could be education. So the thing I'm just going to highlight real quick that I think higher education can do is something called Moocs, M-O-O-C-S. And what that really stands for is a massively open online class. So for anybody that's taken an online class, maybe you've had 25 to 50 people in the class and it was on Zoom like we're doing today. Moocs are actually designed to have anywhere from, a few thousand to 40 or 50,000 people in a classroom. And while it may be a little bit impersonal, that it's a lot of recordings and videos, you can't contact the professor directly. It can provide a level of access of education for free. So I included a quick example here. My institution, along with Fordham University and a number of different groups, including the UNDP, we had developed a 6-week Mooc on green entrepreneurship that any student in the world would be able to take that completely free. I also want to give you some examples of how countries are using these massively open online courses. So here in the United States, they typically aren't counting for college credit. It's more for personal enrichment or personal fulfillment. But in a country like Saudi Arabia, a country that has extremely high unemployment, especially in its younger population, and that is somewhat due to a skills gap, that they don't have the education. There's a gap there between the education and the jobs that are available. What they're actually doing is they're taking Moocs and they're using those to develop education in their country, and they're having people take those, get the training, and then move into these particular jobs. And the one thing I thought was really interesting is that 50% of the people that are taking those Moocs are women. In Jordan, something similar is happening, and 40% of the women that are doing it. And this is the one thing I'll leave you with because I'm almost out of time again, but I did just search for this, and I did find that there is a UN Sustainable Development Goals Mooc that's out there. So that's something, again, a takeaway from today that you guys may want to be able to explore and, again, continue the learning on your own.
That was really awesome, Kevin. It really speaks to me because I'm a learning designer, so I know how important it is to have online access to learn and enable yourself to go higher and higher to achieve your goals and contribute to the world. Awesome. So before we go to our next question, let's hear from Joe. So how has digital innovation impacted the way that international relief work is done? And how does Sdg utilize digital innovations in the building of a sustainable future and provide global cooperation?
Okay, thanks, Elaine. Thanks to the panelists. So once again, Sdg Foundation is an organization that does predominantly over the world, not only with the charity and also international relief, but also in the environmental issues as well. And I think just as Jesse and also Kevin had mentioned, one of the predominant effects of the digital age is that we're now being able to have the information being shared across to so broad, much broader spectrum to much wider audience and at a much faster pace. I wanted to share the slide here, but it seems that I'm having, hang on, let me do this right now. Okay, so for example, one of the things that we are doing as part of the innovation, not yet digital, but part of the innovation is we know that the garbage problems and issues are all over the world. The ecological impacts of plastic that are now killing our environment as well as the animals and the ecosystem. And what we have seen is we're taking these paper cups and all these paper plastic composites, we're separating them, and we're now making them into usable products. For example, construction products. As more houses, as more places are being built for longevity as well as for modernity, what we're doing is we're using these zero waste products coming out of these waste. How do you convert these waste into something that can be used long term? So that's what we're doing right now. And the idea of this innovation is so that we can make it available to different parts of the world. But first, this needs to be known. And that's where digital innovation comes in. where people can now share ideas, whether through the education program or through the sharing sessions or these online forums and panels, where people can now share these ideas freely so that we can now have these products that not only are we making the construction products as well, but also these utensils where we don't want to use these disposable ones. So now we have all these made from all the disposable these waste. And not only so, but also these plastic woods. These are plastic, they're made from plastic, but they're made to look like wood so that it has this decorum to be able to fit in the current, the modern designs as well. So what we're seeing here is, what we're doing is we're able to take these waste and be able to change them into something that's usable. But how can we do that if this idea cannot be shared? This is not just a business opportunity, and I think it goes beyond that. This is a mission for us to save our planet and changing the waste into something that we can reuse and redo them. And one of the things that we do in international relief is to provide the relief, obviously, in times of disaster. The things that we had sent, you can imagine, probably involved in distribution, probably involved in the distribution of the relief items and goods, and also perhaps financial assistance. However, one of the things that we found is this is not sustainable. How do you, this disaster in the world are happening at a much faster pace than we're able to have more volunteers, much faster than people are able to help. Just the past month, within a month, there were 6 hurricanes, 6 typhoons that hit Philippines. And even though we have a long, almost 30 years of history in the Philippines, yet we don't have enough volunteers to go around helping all the disaster sites. We know the time is running out. What we need to do is a global effort together. Therefore, let me show you this picture. What we have done is to be able to connect all the people in the world so that we can pull all the help and the love into the same place. This is the picture that I got, that I took about 6 or 7 years ago when I went to Zimbabwe. And when we were doing a prayer session, now this is across the religion, it doesn't have to fit in a particular religion, but when we're doing a prayer session, for whom? For people in the Philippines. That time, I remember there was a typhoon that landed on the Philippines. And we share with all the kids there that said, on the other side of the world, there are kids like you. They have no homes, they have no schools, and they have nothing to eat because of the typhoon. We cannot do much, but let us pray for them. And guess what? That's what they did. Everybody, they prayed. They might not have the chance to go to the Philippines. They might not even know the people that they're praying for. But I think it's very important to connect the people, not just in the education itself, to know the knowledge, but also to know that there are people on the other side of the world that are having this crisis and disaster, and that you have the power to help them. Only through your prayers or your help is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was a very great point to make that connection and using the digital innovation more efficient and freely to spread awareness of sustainability and this awareness of kind heart. Thank you. And now we're moving on to the last part of this panel discussion with this last question. So from your experience, what are the current challenge and potential risk to global cooperation and a sustainable future related to digital innovation or digital divide? How can we mitigate the risks and overcome the challenges? Jess?
Yeah, this is something that I think about a lot. As part of my senior thesis, my undergraduate degree, I did the internet as a catalyst for social change and really understanding how the internet as a digital tool, what that means for the digital divide, who is being included and who is being left behind. And something that I found very interesting because it offers a very unique opportunity to this period in time is that in the past, before the creation of the internet and before we had these digital tools, you had to be at a certain level in society to get access to books, to get access to information. And so the information was kind of kept in one realm of society with upper classes and with academics. But now that information is available to everyone in no matter where you're from or what you're doing, but at the same time, the digital divide still exists. So we have the opportunity to eradicate the digital divide. On the one hand, the digital divide means not having access to technology, not having access to a computer or to the internet. But at a deeper level, and something that I think about very often is the second level digital divide, which is an inability to use the technology that you have access to. So if you have your computer in front of you, but you're not sure how to get access to information and how to use the tools that you have, then it really defeats a lot of the purpose. And so thinking of information as a commodity, which it really is, and we live in a knowledge economy, we have to have better digital literacy and education around the different types of tools that are available while we're trying to implement them and share them across the world. So that's part of it. Recognizing that the potential digital innovation has to bring ideas across geographies, as Joe was saying, like really thinking about how we can use these tools and ideas and how we can share them with people across the world to get people to participate. We can also create online communities where people can come together based on their interests and their passions, and again, sharing that information, sharing knowledge. It will help us to feel like a global community, feel like we're all in this together, we're all facing similar challenges in different places, and we all have a stake, we all have a responsibility, and we all have a role. It also helps to create empathy and insights into how other people live, a glimpse into other places. Even if you can't physically travel there, you can still learn, you can still experience, and you can still contribute and participate and have an active role. And so in thinking about all these opportunities, we also need to think about and remember who is being left behind. I think Kevin mentioned it earlier, something along those lines too, of who is getting left behind from these conversations, and how can we have very intentional efforts to bring them into this global cooperative network, because it is a network. There's all these different parts of it, and they all have to work together. Everyone has a different role in what that means, and the digital divide can exclude people from those conversations and therefore exclude them from the innovation that is taking place. So as we contribute to this and we continue to develop, in order to make that sustainable, we need to be able to include everyone, regardless of things that are perhaps out of their control. And mitigating the risks and overcoming those challenges is a role that we all have to take.
Thanks, Jess. I'm really glad you mentioned digital literacy because, with this pandemic, I think everyone was pushed to learn new technology such as Zoom, like we're using right now. So definitely recognizing it as an issue is step one. So, all right, let's hear from Kevin. Uh-oh, I think you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, similar to what Jess had said, the digital divide is not something new, but it definitely has been even more challenged with the pandemic and COVID-19. It's even become further than it was prior to that. What's interesting is here in the United States, just looking at the U.S., a recent survey was done by New America and Third Way that actually showed 57% of current college students were having issues accessing the internet, which, as a lot of schools did, they were on Zoom and online for the semester. So you can think of that challenge. There's another survey that looked at 600 schools across the United States and asked for the fall semester, generally, would you be able to tell us what attendance looked like? And they broke it down by each type of student. Now, I'll mention for international students, because I work a lot with international students, attendance was down 11% compared to the year before. And I have personal stories of working with students that they have access to the internet, but they were in another country and, they're connecting through a VPN. They have to do all these different things just to get access to a particular class or a particular resource. So I think it's become even more challenging. I wanted to share an example here in the States closer to home, and it actually relates to some of our public schools in the area, to give you a sense of the digital divide on a local level, but this can also scale to a global level. In my area, again, which is north of Philadelphia and about an hour and a half from New York City, we have 2 school districts. And when I talk about school district, that means typically like a high school, a middle school, and an elementary school all in one district. And in Pennsylvania, you actually have 600 of these across the state of Pennsylvania, but you literally have 2 that are right next to each other. One of those districts has one of the highest median family incomes in the state of Pennsylvania. It's almost $85,000 US for the family, which is pretty high. Whereas the district right next to it, which is an urban district, it's about $35,000. So significantly less. When COVID hit, the school that has the high income, they were easily able to pivot to online learning because everybody had computers at home. They had reliable internet access. So they made me miss 2 weeks of class. The urban district, it took them close to 7 or 8 weeks to be able to get up and running. And that included having to purchase thousands of computers, thousands of hotspots for their students, just to be able to get them connected to the internet. There was a story of a student, and I'm sure it's not just one, going to their local Burger King or McDonald's and sitting in the parking lot trying to get the internet access from that restaurant to be able to do their homework. So that's an example, I think, on a very local level, but you can see, every country has that problem. And you look at rural areas here in the United States that have significant challenges as well, too, with reliable access to the internet. And even outside of education, I mean, you think of things like telehealth and things like that, that maybe people aren't going to have access to in light of this pandemic right now. I mean, it really spins out of control a little bit. As far as how to fix that, the one recommendation I would have is I think places really have to look at the internet like a utility, like electricity. There's a lot of programs out there that, your electricity or your water is not going to get shut off at your home if you lose your job. And while there is some of that, I think, for the internet, I don't think we've taken the step yet of actually saying this is a critical piece to livelihood and to equity. And I think we will see that, hopefully see that now with COVID, but in the next coming months, obviously, this is still going to be an issue. So I think all of us can keep obviously advocating for a free internet or an open internet, and trying to, again, look at it more as a utility than just something that we purchase. As years ago, you did it not as a necessity, but now it's something critical to day-to-day life.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, that's very important. I think you mentioned the important point of how to understand there's different type of and level of challenge that students are facing, no matter utility, electricity, or internet. It's different situations we have to consider, and probably when we try to help them think about these level of difficulties. Thank you, Kevin. And let's hear from Joe.
Okay, thank you. What I'm thinking, actually, I think Jess and Kevin had already covered the part and the challenges about the digital divide. What I want to talk about is actually the risks and challenges posed by the digital innovation. I think as we are connected, we're actually further connected. I think we're getting closer online, but we're getting further apart online or in people, in reality. In my mind, I think innovation should really help us return to our roots, return to our tradition. What is our tradition? It is really human-based. And I think it's human-focused. As we are going more online, which is all positive and which is all good. And also for sure that I'm a proponent of making sure that we lessen the digital divide. But at the same time as the other countries and also the technologically advanced countries and regions, they're spearheading toward more and more online experiences. You can really see that sociologically, the impact to the people are that they are getting further and further away. You go to the restaurants and you see people. You go to any place, you see people. They're rather chatting online than talking to the people in front of them. And that's a real issue. Why? Because you feel that you're more connected to the people that's far away because you get to see their stories, but you are now less connected to people that's in your country or in your neighborhood. And I think that's something that we do need to address as not only the divide, but also as the innovation are bringing us closer in the world. However, we're getting further away from the people that's next to us. And so the issue here is, how can we use this innovation to bring all of us closer? But yet what we see right now are a lot of tools online, and this digital divide is not the divide between the digitals and those that are not digital, but rather it is dividing us in terms of what we believe, in terms of who we are, in terms of what we do. And this digital divide is happening more in the world where the theories and the different philosophies collide and the different interest groups collide. And now it divides us even further. So it's no longer just the groups that have the digital capabilities and the groups that don't have, but rather the digital world is dividing us. So what I'm thinking, what we can actually do, and in order to have this sustainability, is to, how does this digital innovation bring us closer together? In fact, what it's doing now is to show all the differences, whether you believe them to be fake news or not, whether you believe them to be a good or bad. How does it bring this connectivity so that we bring the ideas and we're able to face those that don't agree with us together online and bring us to the different, broaden our horizon and scope so that we can see and we can understand the differences of opinion and study them, rather than saying, well, let us now go with the group that we all share the same ideals. And then we just form this group and become bigger and bigger and try to minimize the other group. Rather than that, let us draw on our similarities, but combine our differences. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do, so that digital is no longer a divide, but rather it's a force that put all of us together. And let me just explain this a little bit further. So to the example that I mentioned earlier, in the international relief scenarios that we talked about, we not only connect the people that are in disaster regions, right? But we also connect to the people that are safe. So then they know and understand. They understand that they're on the other side of the world. There are these people that are much less privileged that need your help. And we can combine our ideas together to help them. But at the same time, let the people that are needing of help know that there are different groups of people that also can use their help as well. So even though the people are needing help, we let them know that they can also help. Bring on our similarities. Yes, there are a group of people that all need help, but also combine our differences, what they can each do to help others. And that's what we have found. Even just a grasp of rice a day could actually put so much more assistance to the entire village. But when we put this effort together, we let others know that this could be done. And I think that should be the way that digital innovation can do for us, is to bring us together rather than to divide us apart. So last thing is to draw on our similarities and combine our differences. That I think is the focus of this digital innovation. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I definitely agree that we're connected online, but not in person. I think digital innovation has made it so that people are now afraid to meet face to face or afraid to make phone calls. They would rather email and things like that. But on the other hand, like, this pandemic helped us leverage video chatting as like a way to connect. So definitely a lot of this or that with digital innovation. All right, now I'm gonna pass it over to Roger.
Thank you. So now is the time, your chance to share your opinion, your suggestion, your thought to other participants. We will assign you to a breakout room with one facilitator per room. We'll guide your small group discussion. And so as a reminder, there's some reminder. They're actually 40 minutes total for this session. So we should end around for for Eastern time, it should be around 9:40-ish. We will have that time reminder broadcast to you all for facilitator. So keep your eyes on that. And panelists will visit at one point during the discussion, and that's a chance you can ask them questions.
Yes, and also remember that this is a safe and supportive environment. So step out of your comfort zone to turn on your camera, unmute yourself, and share your valuable thoughts. And if your mic is not working for some reason, you can use the Zoom chat function, and I'm sure your facilitator in your group will help out as well. And those comments that you type in the Zoom chat during your breakout session will only stay there. And last but not least, don't forget to have fun. This is your chance to meet people from around the world, so definitely take the opportunity. All right, so is everyone ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Let's go.
I think I'm part of group 8, and one of the major topics that we talked about was being understanding and open-minded about when we deal with these kind of topics, and to always consider other people's opinions and their points of view, even if you might not agree with them. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Elan, would you like to call on a group?
Let's go with group 13.
So that is Kelly, if you can zoom out.
That is you, Roger. We're group 13.
Oh, okay. Quickly, sure. Yeah, I was in the Victoria's group, and I remember Damon and then share about Damon shared about his interest and passion with the green infrastructure that we can spend time and energy study about building like solar panel to the rooftop just to be more sustainable. And then Zin talk about the like reduce the packaging for food, and also like to try to formalize thought to reform the education system in Malaysia. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna call on group. I'm gonna look at the comment. Okay, group 10. So,
Hey, did you want to share your post-it?
Wait, is that me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Okay. Sorry, I could not remember.
No
Okay.
worries.
Let's see. So we got like 4 different answers. Let me try to bring it up so I can see.
it's on the
All right.
share screen.
So, oh, yeah, I already got it. Okay, so what I said was that we can like promote these kinds of things through social media, like spread awareness with visuals and descriptions to attract more attention. And then some other people said to reduce meat consumption and research about the topics, use energy wisely and drive less, like just be more wary of the environment. And then another person said to educate others by posting on social media, kind of like what I said earlier. And yeah, it's because people like to watch videos more than reading essays. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, during interest time, we won't be able to share more sharing, but thank you so much for all these great suggestion and opinion of the small action. Later, we're actually gonna show something at the end that's kind of like relate to the small action that you guys provided. So thank you so much. Back to you, Elaine.
Yep. And now we're gonna head over to our Slido board so we can ask our panelists some questions from you. So this first question, very interesting. What are simple things that you would encourage us as students to start doing today that can help our society? And I think I would like to hear from all the panelists. So maybe we can go Joe, Kevin, and then Jess.
Okay, thanks, Elaine, and thanks to everybody. It was very energetic discussion, and we were moving around in different breakout rooms, and thanks to the technology to allow us to do so. One of the things that I think we could do, as many people have already said, especially the young generation of today, the students of today, we're already very familiar and accustomed to social media. And so one of the things that I keep on hearing everybody mention was raising the awareness. And I think one of the very key issue here is know the problems and raise the awareness. Why is that the most important thing? Because now we hear more about solutions. And I think solution is where people begin to have the divide. We share the same problems most of the time. Yeah, there are people that still don't believe in climate change, but so far, let us focus on knowing the problem, but keep a little bit distance about what the solution might be, because that's where people have different stance. And how do you achieve this internet respectability and still be able to reach the conclusion and be able to do something? And I think allows us to needs us to know the problems in and out, do the complete research about what is happening, going on around the world, know the problem first, develop the ideas for a solution, but gather information. I think that's very important. So that's one of the top most thing that we need to do is know the problems that are being faced today by the generations of tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, a great question. You know, what I would really say, and assuming that most of you are maybe in high school, maybe there's some college students, what I would say is, you know, talk to your school and find out if there's any courses that the SDGs are being covered. And the answer may be no. And I think sometimes you may think, what would that look like an environmental science course or something like that? My wife's a high school foreign language teacher, and she brings up the SDGs in her classes because of the importance of the United Nations from a cultural standpoint, from a worldly standpoint. So, you know, I would look at your school and maybe talk to your principal or college administration and say, I found all this great information about the SDGs. I'm a little bit concerned that we're not even learning about them anywhere in the school. Is there an elective class, or is there somewhere that we could possibly implement some of this? And I think a lot of schools will be amenable to that.
Yeah, the piece of advice that I would give, and I mentioned it in one of the groups, but is just to think about your consumption and the choices that you make around consumption. We're constantly being targeted with different adverts and different products, and we do have lots of choices, and the choices can be kind of blinding, but they're also a chance for us to think about what are companies doing and what are the responsibilities that they're taking. Are they contributing a small donation with each purchase? Are they testing on animals? Are they using different types of products that are harmful to the environment? And you just making very small changes, and it doesn't have to be throwing out all your clothes and starting with new ones. Definitely don't do that. But every time you do make a new purchase, think about the ethics behind it and who's creating that. And in those small actions, again, if everyone here changes one action and one product that they use to make it more sustainable, that's over 100 different people doing something small, and that collective action can make a difference.
Thank you, all three. Next question is, globalization sometimes feels like it comes with the trade-off of depth. Spreading ourselves thinner, real depth is real sustainability. How can we address this? Kevin, would you be able to answer this one?
Sure, I can give it a shot. Let me just look at it again here for a second. Yeah, you know, I think, and I mentioned this in some of the groups that I was in, I think sometimes, at least for me personally, it's hard to wrap my head around what my role is in some of this. And I have a real challenge with that, I'll be very honest. And my recommendation normally is, as some of you have heard me say, is to really look at a local level first. So getting involved with your local government, getting involved with local organizations, because one person's not going to be able to solve this for the masses. So I guess if I'm understanding the question correctly from a depth standpoint, I think it can be very simply, what level of engagement can I do in my community, and how can I start to move the needle in the right direction? I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for tackling that question. Next question is for Jess. So do you believe education should shift completely to an approach like Minerva's, or is it meant to complement the approach of traditional universities?
Yeah, there's two different ways I think about this question. And the first part, asking if it should shift completely to an approach and if all institutions should do this. And I think the answer is no, because different institutions have different focuses, different strengths. If you want to become a mechanical engineer and learn how to build airplanes, Minerva is not going to be able to teach you those skills. But if you are trying to learn something that is more interdisciplinary and you want to find the connections between different fields and different thoughts, then Minerva certainly offers that. And so I think that component should be implemented as much as possible in different institutions, allowing students to have access to different fields and different thoughts, and focusing on fundamental knowledge rather than content. Because like we've mentioned before, with access to the internet, you can go on Google and get a resource and read the book and learn that information. But if you don't have the skills on how to apply that to different situations and different contexts, then it can really keep you siloed and create a lot of barriers. So I think that the fundamental skill foundation of what Minerva does is something that I would like to see implemented into traditional universities as well as, of course, the global component. And that doesn't mean that everyone has to travel and everyone has to study abroad, but that global part of the curriculum is something that I definitely think should stay.
Thank you, Jess. This next question is asking, what would you say? Actually, sorry, not that one. As how can we promote good communication to help influence countries to try to work out their indifference for a solution that can help everyone? Joe, if that can go to you.
Okay, I think this is a tough question. Okay, all right. So influence countries. I think it's already very difficult to influence an individual, let alone a country. And what Sdg had done, and I can only speak from my own experience. I know that Stephen Chu is online, and we have our UN team also part of this, the youth movement as well, and they are engaged with the policy groups, the advocacy groups in the US to try to obviously raising the awareness and initiating the programs and cooperation. But what I think is what we do globally. We start out as a charity organization, and that's what we do. And as we are helping others all across the globe in terms of disaster relief, what we brought to them were such awareness. So we do it from the bottom up, instead of going through the top down and influencing the countries, but we go through the people that we are helping. So the places that we have been to during distribution, we share with them the funds that we got were actually from different countries that are also in need. The blankets that we gave them were actually made from plastic bottles, the PET bottles. And that's how we brought the ideas of recycling, the ideas of reduce, reuse, etc. So we do it through our action. We do it from the grassroots, from the bottom up, because I think it's not about the policy. You can have the best policy in the world, but if you don't have the execution or you don't have the trust of the people, then it's really, really difficult. A very simple example would be the vaccination. You could have the vaccination ready by, it's already started in the US, but how many people and what's the percentage of people that will be vaccinated? Well, it's probably going to be a little bit around 50% or 60%. So you could have the very good policy, you could have a very good execution plan, but you have to have the trust of the people. And as NGOs, we could do that through our work with the ground and the grassroots to be able to build on that fundamental trust, to be able to influence the people from the grounds up. Thanks.
All right. Roger, should we go for another question or?
Yeah, why don't maybe just one last question to one of the panelists? Your call.
Sure. So Ethan asked, what would you say to someone who doesn't have much interest in global cooperation in order to get them to care? Would any of the panelists like to tackle this one?
Don't be shy.
Maybe Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to say don't waste your time, but I guess that's not the appropriate answer. You know, I think maybe the more politically correct way to say it would be to focus your efforts for people that understand it, but also don't ignore the people that don't get it. And I think the only way that you can do that is by sharing the information that you have. So you being a well-educated citizen, you understanding the facts, and being able to have an educated conversation, and just understanding at the end of the day that you can't change some people's mind about things, and don't waste your time on that then, and focus your efforts somewhere else. It's a really good question, and don't let it get you down either. I mean, people are going to disagree, and at the end of the day, you just have to not take it personal, and just be able to move on and find the people that agree with you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was very great. Thank you. I think that's probably gonna wrap up our Q&A session time. Thank you for the question. They're very great, meaningful. I really love those questions. Very deep, kind of tough as well. But glad our panel was able to answer it very on top of it. And yeah, awesome. So we're like toward the end of the dialogue. We still have a few stuff that we're gonna go over. But before we do that, we would like to give one last chance for the panelists to give a brief, short, final few words to all the attendees here. Some words of encouragement and some words of advice or anything. So if we can go with Jess, Kevin, Joe.
Yeah, well, firstly, well done and congratulations to all of you for attending this event today. I think that's a great example of actions that you can take. I heard one of the groups talking about that, and it's definitely true. Get involved, be part of these conversations, because you, the youth, have the decision-making power of tomorrow, and your voices matter, your involvement matters, your actions matter. Never underestimate the power that you have. And there will be people who will try to undermine you. There will be situations where you feel that because you are youth that you don't have an opinion and that you shouldn't have a say. Don't listen to that, because just keep pushing, keep advocating for what's right, and continue to get involved, and your voices really do matter.
Again, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed my time here with you today. What I'm going to ask each of you to do is, you know, it's great to post things and like things, as I mentioned to a couple of groups, but I'm going to actually ask you to have some conversations about the Sustainable Development Goals and just introduce those to a couple people. And the people that I'd like you to introduce them to would actually be your parents and your grandparents, because I actually believe your generation knows much more about this than some of the older generations. So even if you're not an expert in it, have a conversation with your parents and say, do you know about these SDGs? And maybe that gets them to go search on the internet for it. And maybe your grandparents aren't on the internet, but you can have a conversation and say, look, these SDGs that are out there, you know, can we talk about what they are? And I think that can really go a long way. While it's great to post and to like things, sit down with those folks and introduce it to them. And if we start to spread the conversation, you know, that's really all you can do at this point. And thank you again.
Thanks to everybody, and really enjoy my time here as well, and to be able to hear so many of these ideas. Also, I would like to thank Kevin, brought out many important issues about reaching out to the local levels, and I think that's very important, because I also believe that not only is it important to know what the problems are, but I think raising the awareness is one thing, but we are going to find that differences, and they are going to come at you like a tsunami wave. And are you ready to stomach all the differences of opinions? Suppose we're supposed to respect each other, but are you really ready to respect all those people that have a polar, completely opposite views as you? And I think the first thing that we need to do is to be prepared. Know the issues and know the pros and the cons of the issues. And so what Kevin talked about, you know, talking to the parents and talking to everybody, they're gonna have the difference of opinion. They're gonna tell you. And being your parents, you're supposed to be able to understand where they're coming from and understand them better and understand why they think certain ways. I think even though right now there's an urgency to reach a conclusion, a solution, I really think right now what we need to do is to come together to reach a consensus rather than jump into a conclusion. And so this is what I do. I try to find a different group where the ideas are really, really different from mine. And I would like to find out why they think so, instead of telling them and selling them to them the ideas that I believe is the best solution. I try to figure out why they couldn't do a certain way and why they don't agree with us. And I think that's something to broaden our horizon and something to say to the person that we don't agree with. And only then will we be able to have a civilized discussion and together going forward. We don't want to leave anybody behind. So thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Joe. Very great comments, and thank you for your valuable times and your opinions. And so earlier we mentioned that the small action that you guys discussed, and so we would like to show the Wheel of Sdg. So this is the Wheel of Sdg goals. All 17 goals are here, and all these sticky notes are the action that you all discussed back at the small group discussion. So all these small action add up together can be a great impact. So yeah, like panelists mentioned earlier, don't underestimate your ability as a youth. Really accumulate these small action can be a big impact. Elaine?
Yes, thank you everyone here. And on the note of saying thank you, we should take a moment to appreciate everyone who made this event possible. So if everyone can please turn off their cameras so that we can highlight our staff. Actually staff, so staff show your cameras, but everyone else please turn your cameras off. And when we call on your group and your name, feel free to say hi, unmute yourselves, and then everyone else, you can use Zoom emojis or the chat function to show your appreciation. So
yeah, just want to add one thing. So yeah, we can't really make these dialogue happen without much help from all these young people across the US. And yeah, we have like starting from October, November up to December, a lot of planning, a lot of organization, a lot of meeting. So we want to take this a brief moment to appreciate the staff.
Yep. So first up, we have from the documentation team, Ariel.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you. And next, from the data analysis, May.
Hello, thank you.
And then we have marketing team, Nick and Catherine.
Don't think they're here right now, but yeah, thank you. Logistic team, Darian, Kelly.
Hello.
Hi.
And moving on to the next group, administration. That'll be Joanna, Isabel, Mempri, and Tiffany.
Thank you, everyone.
Yay!
Thank you. Then we have the curriculum team, also Joanna, Roger, myself, and Elliot.
Hi. Oh. And our biggest team, the facilitators team. And yeah, Elaine, do you want? I think Elaine might have.
Oh yes, sorry, I think my internet is like.
Yeah,
but anyway,
no worry.
group 1, we have Han.
Yay. Group 2, Isabel.
Hi, everyone.
We have group 3 with Kathy.
Hi, shout out to group 3. Thanks for the great conversation.
Yeah, group 4, Danny.
Thanks, y'all.
Group 5 with Angel.
Thank you, everyone.
Group 6, Lydia.
Hi, thank you.
Group 7 with Brian.
Hello, thank you all.
Group 8, also May.
Yeah, my spicy 8, group 8.
Group 9 with Alan.
Hi, thank you all. Shout out to Group 9.
Group 10, Sabrina.
Thank you, Group 10.
Group 11 with May.
Thank you. It was nice meeting everyone.
Group 12, Manpreet.
Hello, thank you everyone.
Group 13 with Victoria.
Hey, happy holidays.
All right, thank you. Group 14, Peggy.
Hi, thank you everyone.
Group 15 with Michael.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Thanks, Group 15. And just want to take the opportunity to say, Roger, you look very good right now.
Thank you.
Nice tie. And
Oh, thank you. All right. Group 16, Martina.
Nice meeting everyone and happy holidays.
Group 17 with Steve.
Happy holidays, everyone. Shout out to Group 17. And I would also echo Michael's comments. Roger, you look fantastic. And you did a great job for the past 3 sessions. And Elaine, you're doing a great job too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the last but not least, Group 18, Alex.
Yeah, great job to everyone in Group 18. It was super fun meeting all of you. Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thank you all. Thank you all the staff. Thank you so much. And now we're gonna move on to the next portion.
Yeah, we're gonna take a group picture. So this is gonna require some coordination, and I'm pretty sure your cheeks will hurt after this. But what's gonna happen is everyone's gonna turn on your camera. You're gonna keep smiling. We're gonna take screenshots, and then after we're done, you can stop smiling. But yeah, so everyone please turn on your camera if you can. And then we'll try to count down. All right.
Yeah, I think it's gonna count out 1, 3, 2, 1, and yeah. Okay, so because one screen can fit that many people, that's why we're gonna take multiple shots. Okay, so we're gonna take our first one. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right, next. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, next one. 3, 2, 1. Great smiles. Okay. All right. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Very lovely faces. See, all right, last one. 3, 2, 1. Cool. And I think we got everyone. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think all the picture looks great. Okay, we're done with group picture. Thank you all. It's good to see your lovely faces. Feel free to keep the camera on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so see if we can bring the last slide up. So thank you everyone for your participation. We hope you learned a lot and felt inspired to create a better world. And so there's just a few stuff, 2 announcements we want to make. So remember to fill out the survey and then appreciate any feedback that you give it to us. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you would like to learn more about Sdg and find volunteer opportunities, please follow us on our social media on Sdg USA, on the Sdg USA website, Facebook, and Instagram at Sdg YLFP. All right.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the staff. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you so much.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Wave goodbye. And if
Happy
you
holidays.
can, feel free to unmute yourself.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Happy
holidays,
holidays.
guys.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Happy holidays.
Thank
Happy
you.
holiday.
Oh, happy
Holidays,
holidays.
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Kelly, you're free to stop the recording.